I think the coaching world is one of the more underused toolboxes in business, and something that we promote and champion with a lot of our clients. And one of the things that kind of struck me is, since it's the NFL season, we all have our favorite quarterback. We have Drew Brees, who's amazing as a good Austin, Texas person. So I can particularly appreciate the helmet in the background. And if you think about your favorite NFL coach, or name your sports or business star, etc. Drew Brees has probably 5, 6, 7 coaches when he was in the NFL, and so does Tom Brady. Why can't a business leader have one? And it's this idea, and certainly I'm feeling it in real time. Starting and leading a company, it can be the loneliest job in the world. You're bored, you usually work for, and everyone else in your company kind of reports to you, and there's no sounding board to the left or the right. And so I think coaches are tremendously valuable because they get to see thousands of things over hundreds of other executives, and they get to see how problems have been solved before, and they also give you an independent perspective that's outside of the echo chamber of life that most of us live in. And I think in both of those cases kind of can and are tremendously valuable to anyone. So why not make life simpler by making it simple?
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? My guest today coined his whole approach to business as the Karma School of Business. And I really love this concept because he really does have a different perspective on what does it take to be successful. Now, we're talking with the founder of BluWave. They are a B2B marketplace for private equity firms and others inside of that world that are looking for funding and looking for the right company at the right time. And we talked with Sean Mooney about helping others be successful. And this whole concept comes from that Karma School of Business that I mentioned earlier. But helping others be successful is something he believes works. He's seen it work for himself. And he said these exact words: helping others be successful means the numbers will take care of themselves. And so he truly believes that without any hooks and without any intention, if he helps others get what they want, be successful and serve them, that he will actually grow from that altruistically, selflessly, but also they'll have an impact to the bottom line. And that's what we look at inside today's episode. So I think you'll find this interesting, helping others be successful. Now, when you're thinking about your next step as a leader, my hope is that you know exactly what's next, that you know leading powerfully is necessary for whatever phase you're about to encounter. And we want to make sure that you are prepared for leading powerfully in everything that you do. When you think about leading powerfully, hopefully you know that there's some areas where you can improve. There's areas where you can actually take a step forward. Maybe it's being more confident, maybe it's being more courageous, maybe it's letting go, or maybe it's just the way you think about your energy and the management. All of these things are topics for our conversation. If you want to have a chat with an executive coach, and you can call me your executive coach, I'd love to help you do that. If you're the founder of a company and want to grow faster, want to actually be an extraordinary leader, then I want to help you figure out what your plan is. And my suggestion is go ahead and go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Inside that, we'll have a conversation that is very unique and different. We'll help you unlock what's getting in your way, help you figure out how to move forward. We'll create a plan together so that you can execute on that plan. Or if you are interested, we'll talk about how we could work together. That's what I love to do, is help you succeed. And the irony of this whole episode is about helping others be successful. And that's exactly the way I live my life as a coach. So all that being said, if you want to have that conversation, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now, here's the interview with Sean. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gene. How about yourself?
I am fantastic. Excited to have you on the podcast to talk about growth and leadership. When we set up this episode, we've done some research on the company. Not only were you a fast growth company, was it 127? That's pretty impressive growth over the last 3 years.
127. It's been a long. It's been a lot of lessons learned along the way, but we've managed to figure a few things out.
Well, I'd love for you to tell us about the company, because that does matter what context you're in. So tell us about BluWave.
So BluWave is like, I think many entrepreneurs, the problem that I solved for myself, the toy that I wish I always had. So I was in the private equity industry industry before founding BluWave. And every day I needed to use and work with excellent third parties to assess companies and build companies and value. Problem was they were very hard to use because every need was different. And so I decided, what if there were this company that was like this magic toolbox where we could connect business leaders, business builders with the most excellent third parties that were the exact fit for their exact needs at the exact time they needed, and said, wow, this would solve all my problems. And so I went ahead and did that. And so what we do is we connect the world's leading private equity funds and their portfolio company leadership teams and proactive independent companies with the exact third parties they need at the exact times they need them. So think of us like a very highly curated business to business marketplace, almost like a Gartner Magic Quadrant meets Yelp on steroids for business.
I love that concept. And I know it wasn't easy for you to get this started. You had some tough goings in the beginning. So it wasn't just like, oh, a rocket ship from the beginning. Tell us a little about the beginning.
Yes. So this was, as I shared, I was, when I was starting off, I had this great job at one of the top private equity funds in the country in New York, and made this leap of faith to pursue a childhood dream, really, to be an entrepreneur. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family and had this idea that I actually pressure tested with probably 50 to 60 different groups, private equity funds, company leaders, service providers in the space. And I thought I had it all figured out. And I figured, how hard could this be to start something from nothing? And I jumped into, off the proverbial cliff into entrepreneurship, got the business going, started to go get customers, and they all said, I love what it does, but I don't like this and I don't like that. And, talk to us later. And so for the first year, we essentially did almost zero revenue. And it caused me to have nearly a heart attack every night. I would talk to my wife every night. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? This is crazy. And we almost went out of business.
Well, I think a lot of people can relate to that journey because it hasn't been easy for most of the listeners to get where they are. Maybe they've had moments where it was really easy, but it's more like a roller coaster than like a bicycle ride.
It's exactly right. I tell my friends, everyone was incredulous and kind of shocked that I did what I did. It was not something that was typically done in the industry, at least that I came from. And I tell them I have the highest highs and the lowest lows, usually 3 or 4 times a day, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. So, versus where I came from, it's utterly satisfying, but it does cause a rather manic existence.
So things are a little bit different now as you've grown the company. You've got a little bit more positioning and people understand that you're this B2B marketplace. You have built a team around you, but you have some special views of leadership. And I would love for you to leave it open and share with us what you see it takes to be successful in leading others.
Yeah, one of the things that I think got me, or guided me throughout probably most of my career is this kind of concept or philosophy that I've coined, the karma school of business. And it's just this idea that if you do good things with and for good people, the world tends to take care of itself. And it's this idea, if you keep things simple, the world becomes simpler. You make more deposits than withdrawals. There's inherent value in that, and people appreciate it. And it may not be the fastest kind of road to Rome, but it's the most certain and highest expected value path of getting there. And it took me a long time to kind of figure that out. And certainly I've probably learned every lesson 3 times the hard way.
You said something in there that I want to make sure we understand. This really is about helping others be successful. And I have a conversation similar, like it feels like 2 or 3 times a week. Your job as a leader is not just to get the work done, but to help others grow and be successful. Where does that come from your perspective?
For me, it probably started like a lot of people in childhood. I grew up in a big family. We didn't have a lot as kids, and my parents didn't grow up with much. And so you had to kind of work together to make things happen. And it was this philosophy of, really just do good things. And so we, as a family, would take in foster kids, and we would, work for a number of charitable things. And as life got better for us, we gave more. And it kind of crystallized for me that this idea that if the world kind of comes full circle. And then we've also seen, people that don't do that, and they take shortcuts, and they maybe burn people, and inevitably the world catches up. And so as I kind of saw things, not only as a kid, but as I developed professionally, is this idea of there's almost selfish altruism. Even if you can't see the value of helping others, which I did, even selfishly, there's value in it, because you just get along further by helping other people out and letting them help you, and just doing good things. It just makes things so much simpler. And I think that, like anything, a lot lot of that starts with the way we grew up.
How does this help the bottom line?
In terms of from us, I can tell you by focusing on just helping other be successful, it's led to dramatic growth. And one of the I think greatest examples is last year with COVID. When COVID hit, our clients, everyone just pulled in the reins. Our revenue almost hit rock bottom. And what we decided was, well, if there's really not business to be done because everyone pulled into sales and was trying to figure out what's going on, why don't we just focus on helping our clients succeed? And so what we did was we put together virtual forums where they could problem solve together. Executives who we knew who were out of jobs for the first time in their career, we just started introducing them to people we knew who could get them back in jobs. We started working with the industry association to try to get people mobilized. We worked with the local food bank whose demand went skyrocketing and their donations went to almost zero. And we just said, why don't we just focus on doing something that helps others, because we know this is going to be ultimately helpful to us, if nothing, but if nothing else is helpful to others, and mostly it's helpful to others. And what happened from that is our business skyrocketed after that. Everyone appreciated it because we just went out to help people and we didn't ask for anything in return. And when the world started kind of, when we looked up and saw that the sky wasn't going to hit us on the forehead and we could get through this, and everyone else did, people came back to us in droves and they started asking like, hey, how can we help you guys? And the business just took off, and it was pretty amazing. And it was kind of our whole business and the whole founding was putting two people together that can lead to successful business interaction. And we just pointed that in a different direction, and it ultimately paid dividends for not only others but ourselves.
I'm kind of curious. You mentioned a lot of different things you did. What did you feel like had the biggest payoff?
It's a good question. I think it was really just this selfless point of how can we help you be successful and not asking for anything. And don't get me wrong, you can't be a pushover in life or business, and you can't just constantly give. And the world's a two-way street. But just this idea of how can we help you? It was just very simple. And I grew up in Texas, so I think I only know how to communicate through cliches and metaphors. But it's just this idea of I found if you keep life simple, it becomes simpler. And that's all we said we were going to do, is just make other people successful. And people appreciated it and remembered us for it. And it led to business.
Now, hold on. Sean just talked about being selfless and not asking for anything in return. I find that this takes a lot of courage because a lot of people want to make sure they're not being taken advantage of. They want to make sure that they're setting out the expectations. And if I do this for you, you'll do that. The quid pro quo approach to business. Well, here's what I find in that sometimes that can work, but most of the time when you're selfless, it works very efficiently. And it works efficiently because you have no need for or expectations for what is in return. You just give. When I'm having coaching conversations that I gift people to help them figure out through a tough situation, I don't hope that they'll be a client. I hope to serve them. I hope to really change the way they see their world. Hopefully they'll get more clear about what they're doing. And that's what I've done over the last 10 years. And I'd love for you to really think about what that means for your own leadership, whether it's your marketing or something inside your company, is really thinking about not asking for anything in return, but just being the leader to serve them. This whole episode is about helping others be successful. This is another step in that journey. Now back to Sean. Love the story here. I want to turn the focus back on the employees. Like you have a team behind you. You wouldn't be where you are without this team. Every founder I know can really give recognition to the others around them. Is that fair to say?
Oh, 100%. If this business were left up to me, we would have been out of business a long time ago.
Visionaries have their skills, and you had this visionary idea, but we have people behind you. So helping others succeed, what does that look like inside your leadership?
Yeah. So the first thing that we do is hire right. We spend a lot of time bringing in people who we think can be successful in our business. And it's we're like every business, we have our unique things. And so my job during the hiring process is to convince people not to come working for us. And so I come in, here's all the reasons why you shouldn't work for us. But if you like these things, you're going to love us. And so if you get the right people on the bus, to quote Collins, that's half the battle. And then the next thing that we try to do, and it's, kind of in some ways common sense, is we ask our employees and we ask our leaders, what can we do to be better? What can we do to help them succeed and make them part of the process? And that's hard for a lot of people who join here from other companies. We say, what can we do to make you successful? And it's unsettling because they don't want to tell you that. It's uncomfortable for them to say, well, here's what I really want. And then they find out if they ask for it, we make it happen, within reason and within actionability. And as they kind of see that happen, they get that trust, and then suddenly they're advocating not only for the company but for themselves. And if we try to make it a two-way street, and the more you do that, it becomes this symphony that of people kind of helping each other, and kind of also living this karma school business, helping others to help yourself to help others, and it's a flywheel effect.
I'd love to take this into that realm of an example. When you've asked that question, what can we do to help you be successful? What did they ask for that you were able to give them, and the impact it made?
It's really interesting. And so as a growing business, for instance, we brought on a new marketing person, and we were using a marketing stack that was probably reaching its end, and brand new person. He was probably not totally wanting to come in and for a big budget request day one. And I said, well, what can we do to make you helpful? He goes, well, we need Marketo. I said, okay, tell me why it's going to help us. And he gave us the examples and made a use case, and I said, let's do it. And so we did it, and it's been tremendously successful. It's this idea of share what you need, tell us why it has an ROI, and then let's go ahead and do it. And maybe another example I love is every day it's little things too. One of the every year we include everyone in our strategic planning process. And most of our best examples come from kind of the most junior folks who just joined, because they get fresh eyes. But one of the things that we show every year at the beginning of the strategic planning process is this clip from Better Off Dead. My generation and others it resonates for them. They've never seen it or heard of it, but there's this great scene where Lane Meyer, who's the main character, is on top of this mountain, and he's looking down at a ski mountain, and he's kind of a semi-good skier, and he looks down and he goes talking to his kind of romantic interest, Monique, and he goes, look at this hill, how can we go down this? We're gonna if I go down this, I'm gonna die and get killed. And Monique says, it's real easy, you just go down the hill really, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn. And she goes down right fast and beautifully skis down, and Lane goes, well, how hard can it be? And he jumps down and immediately tumbles the whole way and falls down, and he gets up, and and he learns that, I can get this. And then 30 movie seconds later, he's skiing like a champ. And so the other thing we try to encourage is, where it's okay to take risks, it's okay to fail, but when you fall, let's fall small and course correct quickly.
Sean just said something really interesting. We include everyone in the strategic planning process. Now, your company may be too big to include everyone, but you want to include a lot of people into this process, because it goes back to the principle of inclusion. I study what makes people feel a sense of ownership across their company without financial tools. One of those aspects and principles is inclusion. When people are included in the strategic planning process, they have a better sense of ownership of what does it take to reach the goal, what does it take to overcome challenges in front of them, what happens when the process has to change or evolve. They take ownership of that. But if you hand them the strategic plan and say, go execute on it, there's just something missing there. So you want to include people into that process. This works across when you're setting the values. It works when you're talking about the mission and the vision of the company. This works really across anything. You want to make sure you're including people so that you are getting their buy-in. It's much easier to get buy-in if they're included than after the fact. Back to Sean.
I've just done another interview where they talked about failure is okay.
Yeah.
And really the whole episode was around the sense of ownership and people having an entrepreneur spirit. And what you're saying is a very similar thing as well.
It is, because I think if you're going to make people successful or empower them to help themselves be successful, you have to give them the ability to fail. But you don't want to give them the ability to fail massively, because that doesn't help anyone. So we have the saying, if you're going to fall small. Let's do micro checks. Let's go, we do these things called OODA loop, where it's just constant iteration and constant A/B testing, and don't get locked into one course and micro adjust the whole time. And so it's kind of like, it's okay to fail, but let's not let's not just run into a brick wall if we don't have to as well.
So I would imagine that you have a pretty good team around what you have as far as the executive leadership team. You have the frontline employees. You probably have some middle level, given the size of your company and the growth that you have. How are you continuing to evolve, and how are people supporting you to be successful?
Yeah, I think this is kind of maybe a common approach for many, where we kind of share with people, your job is to try to do the job above the person so they can do the next job. And the greatest thing that, from my own personal evolution that's occurred is, I think most entrepreneurs feel this, is when you start off, you're kind of involved with everything, and then you have to learn to let go. And then you find out that the others end up being better at it than you are. And so what I think think has been the best thing is that they're all encouraged now to proactively exclude me from all the fun stuff. And so I don't get to play in the sandbox that we originally built nearly as much, but that's good because they're so much better at it now. They do it thousands and thousands of times. I knew what I knew, back in the day from different vantage. And so what our team frees me up to do is to execute, let them execute on what we're really good at and be better at it than I could ever hope to be. So I can think and spend my time on the 2 to 5 years out type stuff. And for me, that's turned into the most fun stuff, is kind of freeing me up from the day to day and thinking about where the business is and having the time to dare to dream in ways that it's really hard to when you're in kind of the in the barrel of the wave getting turned upside down and not sure if you're going to come out the other side.
Sean, I'm glad you said it like that, because I think a lot of people do struggle with letting go, and you've been able to cross that bridge. And I'm sure that there are times when you look back and you'd love to get involved with the execution, but the best thing to do is to develop the people around you and let them grow in those areas so that you can focus on the visionary work that you just described. Sean, we've had a very interesting conversation about helping others succeed, about this karma school of business. Is there anything we left out that you feel like we need to bring to light?
I think the one thing that I would say that I've kind of learned the most as well is this notion of asking others for help. And that was the other biggest thing that I had a really hard time with, was not only do you give from others, but if you're giving to others, it's okay to ask from others as well. It's okay to ask your customers what they want because they'll tell you. It's okay to ask others for advice. I think, Gene, from your vantage as a coach, that's invaluable to have other perspective and having the ability and kind of the openness to ask for others' help is something that I learned along the way. And in some ways, that's our business. Our clients are asking other third parties to help them in ways that they can't do. You figure out life so much faster if you bring in an expert, someone who's really good at something, and then they've already learned all the hard life lessons. Why not benefit from that? And in some ways, that's what we do for others. And the same, we turned it into a business. Ask others for help for something they're really good at and bring them in at just the time you need them, in a situation that's rooted in success. And the world becomes simpler and you get better faster versus, I think most of my career, I learned things the hard way, usually multiple times too often.
I have too. And I want to wrap this up. You said something before we cut on the recorder. Being in the position you are, working with a lot of very successful companies through the PE environment, you've seen the value of coaching, and you actually recommend coaches across your network of people. And you really see that it is not something that is just, nice to have, but really a necessary tool for growth. Tell me just a little bit more about your perspective of coaches.
I think the coaching world is one of the more underused toolboxes in business, and something that we promote and champion with a lot of our clients. And one of the things that kind of struck me is, since it's the NFL season, we all have our favorite quarterback. We have Drew Brees, who's amazing as a good Austin, Texas person. So I can particularly appreciate the helmet in the background. And if you think about your favorite NFL coach or name your sports or business star, et cetera, Drew Brees has probably 5, 6, 7 coaches when he was in the NFL, and so does Tom Brady. Why can't a business leader have one? And it's this idea, and certainly I'm feeling it in real time now, starting and leading a company. It can be the loneliest job in the world. You're bored, you usually work for, and everyone else in your company kind of reports to you, and there's no sounding board to the left or the right. And so I think coaches are tremendously valuable because they get to see thousands of things over hundreds of other executives, and they get to see how problems have been solved before. And they also give you an independent perspective that's outside of the echo chamber of life that most of us live in. And I think in both of those cases kind of can and are tremendously valuable to anyone. So why not make life simpler by making it simpler?
I couldn't have said it better myself there, Sean. So I really appreciate you being here, sharing your wisdom across this, helping others be successful. And I love these concepts that you've named the Karma School of Business.
Gene, I really appreciate it. If there's anything that we can do to be helpful to your constituents, please let us know.
So I always take a chance to reflect on what you just heard there and what I take away as an executive coach and as the host of this show. Leadership is not just about getting the project done or hitting the result or the target. It is about developing those around you. And if you really take a moment, say, this is something that we are going to pay attention attention to, and it really will pay off. Not sure how, but developing others, whether it be skills, giving them the tools, really is something that you should be thinking about as a leader. And all the aspects in between here, where Sean's talking about, having coaches that will support you and guide you. It is lonely, having a sounding board. My clients use me mostly to get really clear about what conversations are next inside this, whether it be up the board chain or throughout the organization, or maybe there's just something that's missing that they don't see. And so we have those real conversations. And if you're curious about what's next for your leadership and how to grow and how to evolve and be a powerful leader, then make sure you check out genehammett.com and schedule a call, because I'd love to support you through that journey. This isn't about me selling you anything. It's about me serving you. Really, I take this to heart. I'm here to help you succeed, lay out a plan, help you see what's next. And if you want to work with me, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But anyway, Sean, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And always, when you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank and Lead with Coach.